Hello and welcome to this video on the Josh Yen channel. Today I'm joined with Taylor Ross, the real trad Chad, a Catholic dating coach, and he is here to join me to talk about Catholic dating. As someone who's single myself, I thought it would be very wonderful to have a discussion on Catholic dating. How can you improve your dating profile? And of course, as Catholics, we want to build good families worshiping God. So how can we do that as men in the 21st century? We're going to do a wide range of things, talk a bit about how to get into Catholic dating, how to get our mindsets right as Catholic, but also to end off with what I think is a very special thing. I've listened to a lot of different dating advice online, but very rarely do you have a Catholic dating coach criticizing someone's Bumble or dating app profile. So we're going to do that as well. So thank you so much for coming on to this channel, Taylor. And to get started, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Josh. This is going to be fun.
I'm totally looking forward to it. So perhaps for those who may not have come across your profile and what you're doing yourself, can you tell us a bit more about your religious background?
Yeah, so I was raised from 0 to 22 as a super hardcore fundamentalist Baptist. So like KJV only, young earth creationism, faith alone, but the most radical version of faith alone, or what you could call easy believism, easy believism. And then around like 20, I started looking into other religions because some of the Baptist stuff that I believed wasn't lining up with scripture. And then 2-year process led me to the Catholic faith. So I've been Catholic for like 3 years now, married as a Catholic. I teach OCIA. So I'm happy in my Catholic faith, but I'm a convert as of like 3 years ago.
That's quite interesting because for those who follow this channel for a bit, I also converted from Baptist to a Catholic perspective. And perhaps moving towards this dating framework, how did Christian or Catholic dating change as you moved from a Baptist perspective to a Catholic perspective? Did you find any noticeable differences there?
There weren't like the mechanism was basically the same. Like where you're meeting women, how you talk to them, how you get a first date, get into a relationship. All that stuff was pretty similar mechanically, but the particulars are what changed. Like what apps to use, where to meet them, what should you be looking for in a girlfriend. Those types of things were different, but like just on a mechanical, philosophical level, the methods were pretty similar. But I would say that it got more difficult as a Catholic simply because it's harder to find traditional Catholics than it is to find a traditional Baptist or a traditional
Hmm.
Methodist.
So from when you talk about traditional Catholic, I suppose what are the concepts that you're associating with that word Catholic? Because we hear a lot about trad communities going online. What exactly are we meaning when we're talking about traditional Catholic here?
So when I say traditional Catholic, I mean someone who believes all the dogmas of the church. They're not just a cultural Catholic. And then specifically when it comes to relationships, they don't believe in contraception. They don't believe in sex before marriage. They don't believe in all those things. And then once you were to get married, they believe in all the traditional teachings on marriage itself. Like they don't believe in divorce and remarriage. The husband is the head of the household, as Ephesians 5 talks about. And they're like 95% of the guys that I work with, they're looking for a stay-at-home wife. They're not looking for, a lawyer or a doctor as a wife. So I'll get myself in trouble there, but yeah, the majority of the guys, they don't want, a boss babe who's going to tell them what to do. They want like a really nice, docile, sweet, graceful woman, and they're looking for a big family with a traditional woman. So that's kind of like from my neck of the woods and the guys that I work with, that's what it means to date a traditional Catholic.
That's quite helpful to have a framework of what we're trying to get at and what we might be looking for when it comes to dating, because sometimes it's talking about ourselves, but also trying to understand, well, who are we trying to match ourselves up with? What are the traits that we're looking towards? But before we jump into the practicalities of dating, can we start off by telling us a bit more about how did you become a Catholic dating coach and why you decided to follow this path?
Yeah, so when I converted to Catholicism, I lost my girlfriend. I lost all my friends. My parents told me I had to move out, so I had to move out into an apartment, had to start from scratch, and so it was pretty difficult. And I'm like, not ADHD, but I get this compulsive focus, and I will just research it, systematize it, step by step, trying to figure out almost like an algorithm or heuristic to solve whatever problem I'm working on. And so that's how I treated dating. I was like, okay, I want to get married, have a traditional Catholic wife. So what do I need to do? So I just dove head first, researched a ton of stuff. I actually ended up finding a course on dating. It was more of a secular dating course specifically for online dating. And that helped me a lot. But kind of the general stuff helped me. So it helped me set up my dating profile. It helped me generally with texting. But then when it came down to more specific things of like, hey, what words am I going to put on a profile? How can I text women that's authentic and efficient? And so those were kind of the particulars I had to figure out. I had to read in between the lines in this dating course of, okay, this is coming from a secular perspective. So how can I kind of transition it over to apply to kind of my Catholic situation? And so I did that. And I started going on a ton of dates. It took me 13 months to meet my wife. And I actually met her through Bumble. Amazing woman, traditional, beautiful, graceful woman. And we're married now. Everything's great. And what ended up happening is that course had a community attached to it. I was really involved in the community. And the guy who actually was in charge of the course and in charge of the community noticed. And he said, hey, I really want to take this business and expand it and go from course selling to coaching and like a coaching program. And so I need a coach to work for me. And I'm the most, knowledgeable guy, active guy in the community. So he asked me to basically based on his course, create like a general dating program for men. They'll handle the marketing and sales. I'll handle all the coaching. So I literally built out the entire system with his, with some of his help based on his principles, but I did like 95% of the work. And so, we were doing 6-figure months and I was the only coach on staff doing everything. And just at a certain point, it didn't really sit well with my conscience that I was helping non-Catholic men get into relationships, because some of these men, they're looking for non-Catholic relationships. Some of these men are just looking for hookups. And so even though technically all I'm doing is helping them set up a dating profile, what they do with that dating profile isn't technically my problem. It just didn't sit well with me. Also, I wasn't getting paid as much as I wanted to. And I figured, well, okay, let's take my knowledge. We're doing 6-figure months and I'm the only coach on staff, literally one guy. We're getting like 20, 30 clients a month doing 6 figures. What if I just took that skill set and made my own company only for Catholic men? And so then I started Trad Chad and started taking that kind of coaching experience and only helping Catholic men, like by myself with my own business. So it really helped. Found the course, kind of helped me in my personal dating life. And then I actually became a coach, created a program through like the guy who made that course, figured out it doesn't really sit well with my conscience. Also, I can make way more money by myself. And then, of course, started Trad Chad like roughly a year ago. So I've been doing dating coaching in some form for like 3 years, but I've been doing this Catholic dating thing for a year now.
That's quite an interesting framework. And I suppose if you measure up around 20 people to around a 6-figure month, you can see how important people at least assign monetary value to their dating experience. And it shows how important it is for us. So this whole purpose of this interview is to figure out how can you find your trad Catholic wife or just a Catholic wife in general. So let's get right into thinking about a Catholic perspective. And perhaps from my perspective, I've gone on a lot of dates with more secular women. I've done a lot of dating. Actually, 2 of my 3 past relationships have all been with secular, atheistic women. So I was wondering, from your perspective, how did you find dating to be different from a secular perspective and from a Catholic perspective? Of course, you could say, well, okay, moral differences, that's probably the biggest one. But is there any other meaningful differences for someone who might be very adept at getting on dates, perhaps without the questions about sex before marriage and other things, which are important distinctions? But going on those dates, is there a tangible difference between these 2 fields?
I'd say that number one, just pure numbers. Like if you were an atheist who wanted to get into a relationship, like we could do it in like, I could get you, in a relationship in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, like no problem. But then if you want to switch to like, okay, well, I want a traditional Catholic, well, now your numbers are drastically lower because, look, let's just face it, Catholic women are not as, there's not as many Catholic women in the United States or in the UK, or I've even had clients in like New Zealand and Australia. There's just not as many Catholic women. So you have to take a little bit more of a focused approach and have a little bit more patience because, like I said, atheists, they're plentiful. Even non-denominational girls, they're plentiful. So we could get you in a relationship in like, 1 week or 2 weeks. But when it comes to Catholic girls, you need more patience to try and find that girl because there's just not as many of them. But then another thing too is I found that Catholic women are way more intentional, at least in my experience and in my client's experience, to where you might be talking to an atheist girl and, we'll just kind of go with the flow, see what happens, keep it casual. Most of the time, Catholic girls, they're not trying to play games. They want to get into a serious relationship at a healthy pace, but they're not going to put it off for months or even years, just wanting something casual. They're ready to jump into something more serious pretty quickly compared to kind of atheist girls. It's funny because like I said, mechanically, it's almost the exact same. The way to do it, the way to get it done, but the particulars, the patience, the volume is kind of where the main differences are.
That is quite interesting. And I suppose we'll tie back into the questions of intentionality when we talk a bit more about dating and how do we go on those dates. But perhaps before we talk about how we get those dates and how we enter into those relationships and choosing the right person, what are some things that I suppose men have to think about as well? What are some considerations that us as, I suppose, Catholic men or single men going into those relationships, what are some things that we should be working on to put ourselves in that right position before we even start talking about dating?
I say the first thing is attractiveness. Like you need to be the most handsome version of yourself before you start putting yourself out there. Like if you are super, super duper overweight and very, very unhealthy, you don't sleep, you don't eat, you don't have kind of like the basics and you don't look attractive, then you probably shouldn't be going into the dating market because that time is better spent preparing yourself for the dating market. I usually tell guys it's like the 3 F's that they need to prepare before they really start dating seriously. And that's faith, fitness, and finances. So I already touched on fitness. Like you need to be a good looking guy. When I say good looking guy, I'm not saying like, oh, you must be born handsome. You need to have 15% body fat, shoulders are wider than your waist, and you have a jawline and you have clear skin. Like that's kind of like the main things that you need to get handled. And then faith, you need to be Catholic, know why you're Catholic, be able to explain the Catholic faith. And then also you shouldn't be constantly in a state of mortal sin. You should not struggle with like pornography or drugs or anything like that. Like you need to focus on that. Go to confession, get a spiritual director, get those vices out of your life before you like move forward into a relationship. Because obviously, if you're struggling with pornography or drugs or gambling, that's going to make your relationship pretty rough. So fix those things before you get into the relationship thing. And so faith, fitness, and the last thing is finances. Don't have an insane amount of debt. You don't have to be ready to get married today and buy a house today and support 4 kids on one income today, but you should at least have a trajectory to where, hey, I'd like to get married in 3 years. So my finances, either right now or on will meet that trajectory. And, if I were to find my wife and we get married and, in 3 years, I can do what I want to do. And I can have that relationship where, maybe it's 1 income, maybe it's 2, but whatever you're planning, you can make it work. So those are kind of the 3 F's that I want guys to get taken care of before they start seriously dating.
And in your experience working with Catholic men, I suppose a lot of people don't have the experience to talk to a dating coach and they're trying to perhaps listen to these advice and try to reflect on themselves. Which of these 3 F's do you find it where men often overestimate their own abilities? Maybe they think they're more attractive or I suppose more fit than they are. Maybe they think they're more financially stable than they actually are. Or maybe they think their faith is stronger than where they actually are. What do you find most common in the people you work with?
I'm very selective with who I work with. It's actually funny because, in my content, on my free content, I'm going to talk a lot about faith, finances, and fitness. But usually the guys that I work with, they have all 3 of these taken care of because, if I'm going to try to push them into a dating program so they can start dating, well, they need to already have all that stuff figured out. Like most of the guys that I work with, they just need a really nice haircut. They need to get a new facial hairstyle. They need to get some really nice outfits. And then they need some help getting photos, setting up their dating profiles and texting and dating and stuff like that. So I'd say, for the vast majority of guys, they need to be more attractive. Haircut, fitness, outfits, stuff like that. That's what like the average Catholic dude on the street needs to fix. But I'm very selective. So the guys that I work with, really all they need is really good pictures and a new haircut. Like it's usually that kind of like simple.
So you would say that most people do need to work a bit more on that attractive side of things. That is normally the easiest way. Or do you think that's the biggest kind of difference maker that most people can do and probably is the easiest one to do for most Catholic men out there?
Yeah, I talk to so many guys and these are guys that aren't in the program, and they're like, man, there's just no Catholic women near me. I'm struggling so bad. Can you help me find more Catholic women? I just tell them like, no, the problem is not that you can't find women. It's that, you are not like, even I could put 100 Catholic women in front of you right now and you would not attract any of them. Like you need to get in shape or you need to get better style. Something like that is really important for the average Catholic dude, because like I said, I can put 100 Catholic women in front of you, but if you're not attractive, you're not going to get any sort of opportunities or dates. And again, when I say you're not attractive, I'm not saying, oh, you have to be born with it. You have to be born looking like, I don't know, name a model, David Beckham. You don't have to be born looking like David Beckham, but you do have to get the things that you can control under control, which is literally just hair, skincare, beard, clothing, and body fat. Like those are kind of the main things you need to get under control. And that's going to be the highest ROI thing for the Catholic dude on the street.
And a lot of times you get a conflicting message when you talk or at least go online for dating advice. And there's some people who like to say, well, you should try to get into dating before you even sort all these things out. You should put yourself out there, try to go on a few dates. And there's another group which says, well, okay, just sort yourself out first and then start dating. Or some people say, well, okay, maybe when you get to a certain level, you can start dating and try to explore. Where do you think you will fall on that list when you're talking to the average Catholic man? Should they, while they're working on their fitness, because I guess if someone's like 30% body fat, it might take them like 2-3 months to get down into 15% body fat, at least 2-3 months. Or maybe finances, they might be in a bit of a bad ship. They're still living out of their mother's basement, whatnot. That might take them maybe not just 1 month to change, but a whole year to change. How far down the line do you think someone has to be before they can say, well, okay, I am ready to put myself on the dating market?
I would say there's a minimum, I could say there's like a minimum effective dose of each kind of thing they need to get in line. And also I kind of say like serious dating. Like you can go on dates, you can talk to women if you don't have your life completely figured out, or you're trying to get in better shape, or you're trying to get a higher paying job. It's okay to go on dates. But the thing is too, when you're dating Catholic women, there's not a huge pool. So if you enter the pool and you're not where you need to be and you dry up all your options, it's like, well, what if you would have just waited a year, gotten yourself into a better position, and then go to that same pool? And now the options aren't dried up because you didn't, run through them when you were 30% body fat. And now you're in a much better place and you're going to have a lot more success. So that's kind of one way that I see it. Ultimately, it's like a spectrum. It's like, if you're in $20,000 credit card debt and you work at Quick Trip, that's a very big problem. You need to work on it. But if you're like, hey, I make pretty good money, but in 3 years, like my trajectory is not going to take me to the place where I can support a family on one income. It's like, okay, well, you can date around. That's okay. Of course, keep it chaste and whatever, but be moving on a trajectory to where, okay, if I do meet an amazing girl and we do get into a serious relationship, you're moving towards hitting your 3-year goal rather than you're like, I'm not going to hit this goal for another 10 years, but I'm going to start dating anyways. And I'm just going to burn through all the women in my parish. And then, I'll try to circle back or something in 5 years. Like stuff like that is just not going to work. So ultimately, it's kind of on a spectrum. And if you're saying, hey, I want to get married in 4 years, and your fitness and your finances, your faith are all going to be on a trajectory to hit, that 4-year goal where you want to be, it's like, okay, you can date.
That's quite helpful. And one thing you did touch upon is kind of the dating around versus being serious. And of course, we do want to say, okay, get into a serious relationship. But how do we consider this idea of, okay, I'm dating around to test the waters versus, of course, being serious? Now, this is, I should say, a disclaimer to say, well, this is, of course, while people remain chaste and whatnot and follow Catholic moral teaching, blah, 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 so on and so forth, as everyone can probably tell. But of course, how does one kind of compare those two frameworks together, and how does one wrestle with those two ideas?
Like casual dating, you could say, I'm going on dates, I'm talking to women, maybe I have some female friends that I could potentially ask out in the future, but I'm not getting into a serious relationship to where, okay, we're now boyfriend, girlfriend, and okay, now we're talking about getting married. I'd say that, just going on dates, awesome. If you're not in a perfect place, going on dates, no harm, no foul. But then serious is where you cross over into like, we are official, we're dating to marry, and we're going to be, we're talking now about engagement and getting married and then moving in and all those types of conversations. So I'd say ultimately just like getting serious and really moving the relationship forward is where you get into those, of course, serious waters, as opposed to just, hey, I'm getting matches, I'm going on coffee dates, I'm having a good time, chaste, of course, but I'm not, wifing anyone up.
And how much do you think, I suppose this just came to my mind, it's in this modern kind of society, dating changes its meaning very much from how dating used to be. In the past, it's like, okay, if I'm going to dates, that's more like a serious date that you're talking about, on the sense of, okay, I have intention to court this woman, to marry her, to really take this seriously. But a lot of times, especially in the secular circles and what we see on social media, people are more like, okay, I'm just going on a few dates. Heck, some people might even sleep with people for a while and say, okay, I'm still in a situationship. And then the whole idea of what dating is has seemed to be warped in society at large. Do you find that kind of narrative of what dating is meant to be versus what dating in society, or how dating is conceived of in society, does that impact I suppose, the mental frameworks or the preconceptions that some of the men you're engaging with or the men you're coaching with? Does that play a role, or does that impact some of the clients?
I say the main thing it impacts is just timelines, because
Mm.
guys will come from dating non-denominational girls or atheist girls, and they think like, oh, I should be in a serious relationship in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and it's like, okay, that's not gonna happen. It's gonna take time to kind of build that connection to the point where you're talking about, okay, now we're serious boyfriend girlfriend. Okay, now we're talking about getting engaged and getting married down the road. So I'd say, well, like the guys that I work with, it doesn't really impact their mindset so much to where I have to almost kind of like delete their software and reinstall like a new hard drive so that they understand dating properly. It's more just like, okay, it's going to take a little bit longer. You're going to have to be more intentional. Don't do the stuff like sleeping with her or love bombing her or stuff like that.
I
I'm
suppose
sorry.
maybe a random Catholic guy off the street might be thinking, well, all right, their idea of what a serious relationship might look like is not like, oh, I'm seriously dating this person for marriage, but it might be, oh, I call myself a boyfriend or girlfriend with this female, and but then in reality, what that actually is just, okay, a girl is just going on a few dates with them, still playing out the waters with them, and they're not really figuring out what they're actually looking for in that relationship, I guess. Like, do you think that a lot of men on the street are falling into this kind of secular mindset where it's possible to just be a boyfriend or girlfriend with someone, put that label of a more serious relationship on it, when in reality what they're actually getting at is perhaps something which is more casual, at least from either the female's perspective, or perhaps what they're even expecting from what a serious relationship is meant to be is also actually something which is more aligned with what people view as a casual relationship?
I'd say the majority. I'd say it's on a spectrum. So you have your like super, super duper, like almost rad trad guy who's like, first date, how many kids do you want? You kind of have that kind of extreme to where it's like, hey, it's good because you're dating with the intention to marry, but you're moving way, way, way too fast. And then you have the other person, kind of like what you were talking about or alluding to, where it's kind of like it's Catholic dude, but they're thinking more secularly to where we're just going to date and whatever happens, happens. And my intention is marriage, but nothing they're actually doing is like trying to move the needle to marriage. Then kind of like the guy that has his head screwed on straight, or kind of like the guy that goes to my program, what I try to get them to do is, okay, let's envision, what do you want your wife, kind of list out what are kind of like the essentials that you would want your wife to have for her to fit with your goals and your vision. Okay, once you have those essentials, okay, now let's start going on dates, see if these women kind of fit your essentials, see, talk to her, see if you make a good fit together, because women are going to have essentials that they want in a guy too. And then you basically just keep moving forward. And I usually give guys a pretty simple timeline. It's like, hey, in 1 to 2 months, if she is, really fitting with your vision and you're really fitting with hers, okay, then you can be boyfriend, girlfriend. And all that means is like, okay, we're not talking to anybody else. We're completely focusing on each other to see if we're a good fit for marriage down the line. And then essentially, once you kind of have everything else figured out and more of the hard logistical questions of, hey, do we want to get married? Can we get married? What would that look like? Once all of that lines up, it's okay. Now you can move forward into, I'm meeting her parents, she's meeting mine. We're getting very serious. Now we're talking about a potential timeline for getting engaged and getting married. And then eventually, along that line, if it's all green flags, then you're getting engaged and you're getting married. If any red flags come up that point from her side or your side, okay, then you're going to break things off and kind of restart the cycle.
That is quite helpful. And I suppose we'll get back to this idea of, well, when do you break things off? So what would you say are some of the best ways that one can approach women? And of course, how does one get over approach anxiety?
I'd say so. I'd probably go a little bit more meta. I'd say,
Mhm.
there's a couple different ways to meet women. They're all valid. A good dating strategy incorporates more than one method. I would say, like, if I have to catalog literally everything, it's going to be online dating, it's going to be speed dating events, and then it's going to be like kind of like social events, and then it's going to be Instagram. So I'd say like all four of those are kind of like the main ways to meet women. And I always tell guys, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't like only use online dating, or don't only go to social events locally. You should have kind of a more holistic approach that uses all of these strategies so you can meet your wife. And ultimately what that comes down to is like, okay, we're gonna start with making sure your hair and your clothes and all that looks good. Okay, then you're gonna get some photos. Those photos are gonna go on your Instagram, and you can create dating profiles with those photos. Okay, now you have a dating profile. You're able to meet women that way. Now you're attractive. Now, okay, now you're gonna start going to social events. That could be Bible studies. I don't know, like trivia nights, interfaith dialogue. Like some churches have like debate clubs and stuff. So start going to those and start looking out for women there. So we have online dating, we have these social events. Okay, start going to speed dating events, whether that's virtual or in person. And okay, now you have Instagram. You can be DMing girls. You can be meeting girls in person, giving them your Instagram, and then maybe they see your stories, you see their stories, you like each other's stuff, you start DMing each other, and then that eventually moves forward into a date. So that's my meta answer is like, okay, 4 methods to meet women. You should use, not just one, maybe all 4, maybe 2 or 3.
Hmm. And in that case, I suppose if someone wants to get to know some Catholic girls in their circles, you've raised kind of Bible studies, social events, and whatnot. Can you perhaps give a bit more, I suppose, concrete advice as to what someone should do when they put themselves in those situations? Perhaps you go to a Bible study. What are some things that you can be doing to either put yourself out on the market to get to know some girls, and what are some of the things that should be going through your mind when you just enter into this new social group that you've placed yourself in?
I'd say step 1 is don't go to a social event purely looking for women, because usually women can smell it, and you'll come off as weird or desperate. So I'd say number 1, like pick an event that you would go to even if there's no women there. That is something that you would genuinely enjoy. Also helps to bring a friend or two to the event as well. So it's not like you have to go. You have no friends there, whether it's a guy or a girl. You have to go strike up a conversation cold and try to establish some relationships. So you're not just some random guy that just showed up to the event. It's always nice to pick something that's fun and go there not just completely by yourself. And then once you find yourself in this event, then you can start being like, okay, are there women here? What's the turnover looking like? Like, are there women? Are there new women coming in at a decent rate? Stuff, and then you can just start making connections, making friends, start talking to women. And what I usually like to say is like, hey, you see a girl, you talk to her at every event. You've talked to her for 2 or 3 events, and it seems like you try to flirt with her. She seems pretty receptive. At that point, it's like, okay, now I'm going to ask this girl out after basically getting green lights all along the way. No major red flags or red lights or accidents or anything like that. Then you can kind of move forward getting into that relationship. That's usually how I like to tell guys to navigate social events, rather than, okay, I'm going to find this event and I'm going to go by myself and I'm just going to start cold approaching random girls, ask them out immediately, because that approach is what gets you friend zoned. And then all of a sudden you're the weird guy that came to the Bible study looking for a wife, rather than the cool guy who came to the Bible study because he likes the Bible study and he brought friends and it was a really good time. And then over 2 or 3 or 4 visits, maybe even go to this event for 2 to 3 months, then you made a really good connection with 1 or 2 girls. You asked, a girl out. That's a much better approach.
And perhaps imagine someone's gone to these events. They've looked at what's going on in their parish. They've gone to the Bible studies. They've gone to the social events. Maybe they're doing something with the outreach of the church. But perhaps they think the girls in their local parish either just aren't the right fit or just don't match them too well. What are some of the directions that someone can go to if they find that their circle, or at least their immediate circle, are I suppose, unsatisfactory?
I'd say it's time to expand your circle. So start going to different events. Go to events at other parishes, or maybe different events within your own parish. And then, of course, that's why I say, like, let's not just rely on one thing. Let's make sure to diversify. So your pool is going to be social events, and if one social event doesn't work, you can map out other different ones and start attending them. You can have online dating, so now it's not just the 10 girls at the social event. It's now the 100 girls that are local to your area that are on Catholic Match or Candid or all these different dating apps. And then same thing with Instagram, and same thing with speed dating events. So that's when I would say, okay, number 1, you should have been diversifying to begin with. But hey, if you're not diversified and you're like, hey man, this social event thing, not really getting any good leads at my social events, then it's okay. Start going to new ones and also diversify your approach to online and speed dating.
And I suppose there is a certain stigma, especially in more conservative circles, about these dating apps. When someone says, "Oh, I'm going on dating apps," people are like, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing? Why are you on the dating app?" Or, "Oh, that it might be good, it might work out for my friend, but I'm too conservative, or I'm too trad for this." How do we navigate this stigma around dating apps, and how do we promote this idea of Catholics using dating apps in perhaps a more wide scale fashion?
I think the problem is like these Catholic guys that don't like dating apps. It's like, how many dates have you gone on from dating apps? Like the average experience is they take the 5 least crappy photos from their camera roll, throw them up on a dating app. They get all their matches are 400 miles or 400 miles away, and so they just delete all the apps and say, "Oh, it didn't work for me. It doesn't work for anybody," and they just generalize their experience or universalize it. And that's the problem with most guys. But the good approach is like, okay, online dating is a tool. either, it has worked for so many other guys. So that's one big thing is like, hey, look at all these guys that found success. Like even for me, I met my wife on Bumble and she is super trad, like super trad. Like you could, like all the buzzwords, like even the Timothy Gordon, fanboys and stuff would be like, oh my gosh, that on paper, that's, the type of trad wife that I want. And I met her on Bumble. And like I've had friends that met, got engaged off of Hinge or got engaged off of like me, Bumble as well, or got engaged off of Catholic Match. And so ultimately it's just like, I know you have the stigma, but is it a well established stigma or is it just coming from people that either yourself, you tried online dating, you really half-assed it, didn't even do a really good job or give it a good effort. It didn't work. And now you're just going to say, oh, it's never going to work. Or do you realize, okay, all these other guys are having success. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, which the average Catholic guy is definitely doing pretty much everything wrong when it comes to online dating. And so I need to kind of fix my approach. It's ultimately, like I said, it's a tool. And if you're holding the hammer upside down and it's not working, it's not the hammer's fault, it's your fault. So use the tool correctly. And then last thing I would say, I'm trying to think, what was I going to say? I do think guys have to realize that online dating, like the majority of women on online dating profile or on online dating platforms, they're not Catholic. So yeah, online dating is not just filled to the brim with millions of Catholics. But guess what? There's enough Catholics on there to get successful. And guess what? These Catholic women are looking for a very specific type of guy. And so these Catholic women are like, there's less supply, but there's also less demand. And so anyone who's taken, microeconomics knows, okay, there's less supply, there's less demand, there's way less competition. So I can still have success on these apps, even if the majority are not traditional Catholic girls.
And you've raised a few different dating apps, I suppose. You've talked about Catholic Match, Bumble, Hinge. What type of dating apps would you direct people towards when it comes to dating? I suppose a lot of people talk about dating apps, they think about Tinder, and Tinder has its own reputation. Is the stereotypes matching up to dating apps accurate? And number two, what dating apps would you recommend people to be going on?
I'd say it varies so widely. Like it's crazy, but how old are you? What race are you? Where are you? Those kind of are the biggest factors which determines whether or not a dating app is going to work for you. Because guess what? Bumble works for me. I'm in Wisconsin. It's amazing. I have clients in the UK. Bumble does not work for them. Hinge works for them. So it's kind of a case by case basis to where I tell guys, there are apps that are more likely to have Catholic women on them because they're more serious, more relationship minded. So put yourself on those apps, try them out for 2 to 3 weeks. And what you're going to find is out of the 5 apps or 6 apps that I recommend, guys, okay, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 are getting me the most hits and the most matches and the most dates. And so just focus on those 2 or 3. So it's kind of a case by case thing. For that actual list of what apps I tell guys to try, I tell them to try Bumble, Hinge, Catholic Match, Facebook Dating, Upward, and Candid Dating. Those are all the apps that I tell guys to try. And like I said, what you're going to find is, hey, maybe Catholic Match and Hinge are your bread and butter. Delete everything else and just focus on these 2 and just keep going out with women until you get married. It's really that simple.
That sounds like a good advice. And I suppose a lot of times we've talked already a bit about how men can develop themselves and be a better person to put themselves in with a good step forward. But how do you kind of navigate and find those Catholic women on those dating apps? A lot of times, when you're scrolling through Bumble, you don't have much information to go off when you're swiping right. What are some of the evidence, or at least what are some of the traits that you can put in your mind as a filter to say, well, okay, that girl's probably a Catholic, or at least I might have a chance by swiping right or liking or sending a message to this girl. What are some of the filters that should be going through your mind?
Yeah, it's a great question. So first thing is if you're on an app like Candid Dating or Catholic Match, Catholic girls are going to be on there. So that one's pretty self-explanatory. But if you're on a Hinge or a Bumble or an Upward or a Facebook Dating, all those apps have an option to put Catholic in your profile. And so, hey, if this girl has Catholic in her profile, it doesn't automatically mean she's a traditional Catholic, because there's tons of like feminist, lefty, progressive women that are culturally Catholic and put that in their profile. But then you can also kind of judge that based on, number one, the pictures. Like, hey, if she's very scantily clad at a travel picture in Ibiza, but she has Catholic on her profile, okay, now you kind of know what Catholic she is. She's not a traditional one, so swipe left. But if there's this girl, it says Catholic, in all her pictures, she seems very traditional, there's no bikini pics or anything, then okay, let's take it to the next step forward and let's go to texting. Let's talk to her, see what type of relationship she's looking for. And then once I get her number, then I can kind of ask her about like, oh, by the way, what parish do you go to? Or just simple questions like that, where you're not saying like, hey, are you a traditional Catholic? That's just like autistic and weird. But just casual questions like, hey, what parish do you go to? Oh, I don't really go to church ever. Okay, well, there's your answer. Or, oh, I go to this FSSP parish, down the street, blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, she's clearly a traditional Catholic, and so it's ultimately like you're looking at the pictures, you're looking at the profile. If there's no huge red flags, you're going to move forward to texting. If she's looking for a traditional relationship, she seems Catholic, then it's okay, we're going to move forward. And sometimes you just have to go on the date too and be like, okay, so she seems great. Couple question marks. We go on the date. I can get those question marks resolved. So it's kind of like a metered approach, and you're just watching for big red flags, like as you go along, like slutty pictures. She's looking for something casual. She's looking for friends with benefits. She says she's Catholic, but she never goes to church. Like it's just kind of a metered approach.
And I suppose once you get that match with this dream girl, I suppose, or at least some girl out there on a dating profile, what are the best ways to approach them? I suppose with Bumble, it seems to be quite easy where, or at least Hinge or Tinder that I've been on in the past, there's at least loads of pictures that you can take, and you could probably look at one and say, okay, that person's going to vacation. Oh, I recognize that spot. There's something to build off. But if you can't find something to build off upon, or at least send like a question about what they're doing, or do they like traveling or stuff like that, what are some ways you could reach out to them?
I tell guys, so I have like I said, I love to systematize everything step by step. And so when you're messaging on a dating app, all you're trying to do is build enough connection to make sure you're looking for the same thing, and she's interested in giving you her phone number. The point of the dating app is to get a phone number. It's not the point of the dating app to get her to fall madly in love with you or text for 4 weeks so you can get to know each other or anything like that. You just need to get her phone number in, I like to tell guys, roughly 1 to 2 days. Okay, now you have her phone number. Now it's time to ask some questions, figure out, where does she live? So I know where to actually plan this date for, what is she looking for? And so now we're on the phone number. It's like all we're trying to do is build up enough connection and make sure that a date makes sense, and then get that date planned. And then on the first date, we're going to, figure out more data, make sure she's, actually what you're looking for, and then build a really solid connection that carries over into a second date. And so that's kind of like everything that you're going to be doing. Do you have any questions on that? Otherwise, I can talk about specifically what texts are you sending? How are you starting conversations on these dating profiles?
Well, I suppose how to start that conversation. I'm taking an example of Catholic Match that I saw. It's like someone has the introduction, two pictures, and then the introduction is like someone to go closer to God with and live a life of joy, love, and abundance. And it's like, well, there's not much to go off there. If I was to like that profile and send a message, what should my starter message be?
So I usually tell guys the easiest way to start a conversation is just copy paste something or just tease the girl. It's that simple. Like my favorite lines that I tell guys to use is to literally just say just look at her profile, say, cute, blonde, Catholic, ... what's the catch? And that's a fun conversation starter that I pretty much tell guys to copy paste. Or you could say she's got something on her profile that she loves. I don't know, basketball. Oh, when we play basketball together, I'll let you win with a winky face. Just something simple like that. And so, yeah, if you don't really know what to say, then just send her something copy paste cute blonde Catholic, what's the catch? And if there's something on her profile, like a subjective interest, like her music taste or sports or something you can tease her on, then go for that. Because ultimately, again, all you have to do is get a conversation started and build up enough connection to get her number. That's all you have to do on the dating app. So guys always think I got to get in her head and understand her super deeply and build this insane connection. And then only then can I kind of move forward. It's like, no. You just have to BS enough to get a good connection and get her number in 1 day. That's literally all you have to do.
And do you find that approach kind of works across the board, both on Catholic Match and on Bumble and Hinge? Or do you find that, I suppose, that approach of light teasing perhaps more helpful on the more, I suppose, quote unquote, secular dating apps?
It works everywhere. I use this when I was, coaching secular guys. I use this when I'm coaching Catholic dudes, because ultimately it's you don't want to get on the dating app and start asking questions about what's your favorite devotion, what's your favorite, liturgy, what's all his favorite stuff, because you just come off as an autistic, trad cath who's completely one-dimensional. Just that fun, lighthearted, we're teasing, we're having a good time is how you build connection enough to get the number and not get buried under the sea of all the other matches that she's getting on a day-to-day basis. So that approach is going to pretty much work. It's going to work universally.
And how long does one aim to text after you get the number and you're engaging with them a bit more? How long would you suggest someone texting them after you get their number to go on that first date? Is it a week, a month? What's that time frame?
I'd usually say you roughly from match to meeting her in person, you want to be roughly 1 week, because no matter what she looks like literally no matter what she looks like, she's getting 100 matches a week. And so you got to move with some urgency, because if you just have this long, gassed out conversation that's completely platonic, you're just going to get lost in the sea of other matches and she's not going to reply to you. So like kind of a more specific timeline, it's like, okay, I'm matching with her. I open with a fun opener. We start talking. Like once there's a pretty good vibe established, usually like maybe like anywhere from 6 to 8 messages total. Like you send 3 messages, she sends 3 messages, like kind of like, intertwined. Send, reply, send, reply, send, reply. Okay, now there's 3 to 4 messages on each side. Okay, now I'm gonna ask her, and by the way, like what are you looking for on here? Just kind of trying to feel where she's at with her, or what she's looking for in a relationship. That gets you out of the small talk, hamster wheel. So 4 to 5 messages each. What are you looking for on here? Oh, I'm looking for a really, really serious relationship, or blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. I'm looking for that too. You go back and forth a little bit. Awesome. What's your number? Let's set up something fun and we can meet each other. And boom, now you have the number. It's been roughly 1 to 2 days, and roughly 10 to 20 messages total from both, combined from both. And now you're on the number. And then roughly you want to set up, once you get her number, you want to kind of talk. I always tell guys, like, start with a fun opener, get talking. Then you want to figure out, where does she live? And then, is she actually Catholic? And then now you're at the point, okay, I know what she's looking for. I know where she lives. So now I'm just going to suggest, like, hey, there's this really cool ice cream parlor halfway between us. Does that sound fun to you? Yeah, it totally does. Okay. When are you free? You're going to ask her. She gives you kind of her schedule. You lock in a date for, in the next 3 to 4 days. And then, okay, you go on the date. And then up to the date, you're texting every day or every other day just to keep tabs on each other and not completely disappear on her. So then in total, it's like from match to scheduling a date, maybe like from match to number, 1 to 2 days. From number to, okay, now we have a date on the plans, is like maybe 1 to 2 to 3 days. And then, okay, now we're actually meeting each other in person, is another, 2 to 3 days. So like roughly 7 to 8 days in total from match to meeting in person.
That is very helpful. And I suppose the highlight of this video is for you to roast my dating profile. I've created this Bumble profile, and I recently was watching some the roast of Donald Trump on SNL or something like that. So I suppose this could be equally as harsh. I'll try to get this as big as possible. But as you can see here, this is a picture of me at Stamford Bridge. It's Joshua, 21 years old, University of Oxford. The bio is, let me try to read this for you since it's probably not going to show up on the camera. Enjoys cooking, football, or an afternoon with friends and family. Can be found traveling during holidays, meeting new people, and learning new things. And then the height is 5'8", active, studying my undergrad, drinking sometimes, smoking no, man, of course, I'm not as they, them, and then don't have kids, Sagittarius, Catholic. I'm looking for fun, casual dates, generosity, curiosity, and loyalty. My interests: football, museum galleries, philosophy, classics, and deep chats. And there's a picture of me with a Soviet hat on. And then 2 truths and 1 lie. Hiked in Africa, kayaked in the Amazon, and rode horses in Mongolia. Languages: English, Chinese, and Spanish. There's a picture of me skiing in teens. And then here is, I'm known for going to a Halloween party dressed as Chairman Mao. I used to have a picture of that. I don't think I have that on here anymore. There's a picture of me talking to my friend in London. There's a picture of me in my scholar's gown in Oxford. To me, self-care is a nice meal out. And then a picture of me in front of the Eiffel Tower in Paris. What are some of the initial feedback that you'll give on this dating profile?
I definitely say it's above average. There's stuff we can do, but it's definitely above average. I guess my first question would be, and then I'll kind of get to my review. Are you getting like how many matches would you say you're getting per week? Because I'm curious. Okay, I'd say it's above average. Kind of what's success looking for you?
I don't get many matches on Bumble, actually. I would normally get around maybe 2 or 3 matches per week. And then sometimes I'll put on a spotlight and then I'll get a bit more matches. But I mean, I've only had this profile quite recently. I haven't used dating apps for around a year now. A year back, I had a slightly different profile, and that was when I was coming back from the World Cup in America. And then I was on Tinder and Bumble, and my bio was, I think it was like, just came back from the World Cup, trying to keep up the scoring streak or something like that. And I was getting like 20 matches like a week, or like 30 matches a week on that. With a relatively similar profile, I think the only difference was the picture was of me dressed up as Chairman Mao with a fat suit on. I think that was one of the main differences.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's just go picture by picture then. Can you show me that first picture again?
Yes. Let's put this up largely. So the first picture is me at Stamford Bridge right here at a football stadium.
Okay. I guess first I'll do a little meta. So when I'm looking at a dating profile, pictures are going to be like do like 80, 90% of the legwork. And so you can put the phone down. I don't want your arm to get tired. Basically, I'm looking at three things. Every picture, I'm asking, does it pass these three tests? Number one, can I clearly see what you look like? Number two, is this showing you at your absolute best? And number three, what story is the photo telling? Because every photo has a story or a context behind it. So we want to make sure that the context isn't unattractive or doesn't make sense or doesn't make you look like a loser. So let's go to that first photo again. And then with those three things in mind, this review will be a little more intelligible to the audience. So can you show me the first photo one more time? Yeah. Okay. I can clearly see what you look like. So that's a pass. Context is good because you're at a football game. And then is this you at your absolute best? I do think this is a pretty good picture. I would be really nitpicky and want it to be a little bit more zoomed in and be from a little bit of a lower angle. That's just going to make you look more attractive. But I'd say this is a good photo. It's not like, I'm not saying it's the best photo ever, but it's definitely good, above average. But yeah, I'd say to make this specific photo better, I'd want a little bit of a lower angle, make it closer so you're taking up more of the frame.
So do you think that would be more similar to this photo down here, not that one, this one, where it's kind of from a lower angle and it's kind of with me in a scholar's gown at Oxford? Or
yeah, that's definitely better. I usually like to tell guys like your most flattering, attractive angle is going to be kind of like thighs and up. So I would even want to zoom that one a little bit in. So yeah, that's what I think.
That sounds good. So that probably for this photo down here would be more of just a crop, would it not? Or
I'd say so that photo.
I mean, the
snowboarding. Yeah, that one would be just a little bit of a crop. So yeah, that's good. I just want a little bit of a crop. The snowboarding one, I mean, there's kind of two ways you can go with this. You could, like, a really good version would be, okay, you're going to be a little bit more up close. You're going to take off your, your helmet or your goggles or whatever, so you can actually clearly see what you look like. And then you're going to kind of take more from that cropped angle. I would like that. The other way you could go is, let's just say you have a ton of, you already have 4 or 5 photos clearly showing what you look like. So then you're going to do kind of more of a zoomed out one, just saying, here, hey, here's me snowboarding. That's another option too. But I'd say ultimately the biggest thing is, like, you don't want a photo to look like you could have just taken it off of Google Images and the girl can't actually tell that it's you. So I feel like that photo might be right at that line where it's like, I can't really tell it's you. Could have just been taken off of Google Images. So I would have preferred it to be a little bit closer. Also, probably would have preferred, this is going to sound so dumb, a little bit more masculine posture, because like with your hands up like this, looks kind of like you're going yippee. So it's like a little bit.
That is true.
A little bit more masculine posture. But again, it's like, it's funny because when I do these dating profile reviews, they're kind of like, this is so like nitpicky and weird, and like I would have never seen this myself. But I've coached, I've done hundreds of profile reviews, reviewed thousands of pictures, and I've coached 130 guys. So I'm not just pulling it out of my derriere.
And talking about masculine profiles, would you think this picture would be relatively, I suppose, a masculine pose in front of the Eiffel Tower, or do you think this would be, I suppose, a bit too much on the masculine side compared to everything else?
I think that's good. Only thing I don't like is, like, there's NPCs scattered in the photo, so probably wouldn't have wanted that. And then also, usually nighttime photos, you can especially tell in that one, nighttime photos, like the lighting is so brutal. Like the camera has to work really hard and really like overcompensate exposure wise to have a well lit photo in the middle of the night. So usually I don't prefer those.
And how much do, I suppose, pictures with friends come into a dating profile? Because I know some people really suggest having friends in your profile, and other people saying that's not a very good idea. Like, how many photos should have other people in it, and to what extent should other people be in these photos?
I'd say it's good to have like one photo with friends, but you can't. It's not like a quota that you must hit, or else you're never going to get matches. Because like the main pitfalls that I see in photos with friends is you don't look attractive in this photo. You're just like, oh, this is a photo with friends. You don't look attractive. Maybe some of your friends are more attractive than you. Some of your friends are taller than you, and you just don't look your best in this photo. So I would say a social photo, I call it social proof. You need to still look handsome, still look attractive. You need to be like the center of attention, at least for the photo's sake. And you need to not have friends that are mogging you, or are way taller than you, or way more muscular than you.
So that's quite interesting that you say that, because currently this is the photo with a friend that I have here, where I'm kind of dressed I suppose, relatively smartly, I suppose, in this photo, versus I used to have this photo in Friends, which, I mean, Bumble has its best photo app. And this used to be my best photo on my Bumble, which was with me, two other friends, three other friends, one female, and two good friends of mine. Would you say that this is a good photo in which I could include in my profile, or would you prefer, I suppose, a photo that I just had on the screen here?
So the best photo algorithm is not necessarily, gospel truth. It can be kind of weird sometimes. So
Hmm.
you can give it some credence, but not too much. And I would say I would probably prefer that photo over the other one because you do look great. Your friends are not, way taller than you or better looking than you. And there's also a woman in the photo. So it's like, okay, this guy's normal and he has female friends. He's not a complete, creep that's going to, abduct me on a first date. So I do think that's a good photo.
So you would prefer that photo over other things. Would you say how, like, I suppose something which shows a bit of a cheekier personality, I'm not sure that's the right word, but I suppose this one of me with a Soviet hat, do you think that is something which would be seen as a good photo, a bad photo? What would be your reactions if you saw this photo of just, I suppose, with the first feedback, this is something which is close up, it shows me that I suppose my face looks relatively well in this photo. How would you judge this photo?
So I'm gonna say I don't like this photo. And
Hmm.
like you said, like the crop is good. I can clearly see what you look like. But then now, okay, is this showing you at your best? Kind of like a very forced pose with kind of it's not a goofy hat, it's not like a clown hat, but it is kind of like a little comical. And then also the context, it looks like you're just taking it inside of like a hotel or a living room or something. And so just when the girl is like imagining the moment when the picture was taken, you're like in the back of a hotel, crossing your arms, kind of like a you could call it a cheesy staged photo that's a little goofy. So I wouldn't
Hmm.
say that's, I wouldn't I would not include that photo on the profile.
Alternatively, what do you think about this photo? And the reason why I say this is that this is a photo which got me my third girlfriend from Bumble. So this is a photo not of me in my best, but it's me in a fat suit, dressed as Chairman Mao. It's not a very good photo, but I suppose it does have that kind of characteristic aspect. But it doesn't have, I suppose, me at the best and whatnot.
Yeah, I don't like it. It's just
Hmm.
too goofy. It's not even like, oh, it's the worst photo ever. It's not going to work. I just like personally, I'm always thinking of like what's the most optimal, what's going to get the highest probability. I'd say that's not a like highest probability photo to get you really good matches. Not that it can never work, but like probability wise, I would want something a little bit better.
And how about, I suppose we've talked a bit about the photos, and I suppose that's, as you say, 80% of the dating profile. But how would you rank a bio? So I guess my most successful bio of all time was just came back from the World Cup. I want to keep up the scoring streak or something like that. And for
Yeah.
obvious reasons, that's probably not the most Catholic attracting bio in the history of humanity. Alternatively, this is a bit more of a boring bio. Enjoys cooking, football, or an afternoon with friends and family, can be found traveling during holidays, meeting new people and learning new things. That's less of a, I suppose, a playboyish kind of attitude. How would you
Yeah.
compare those two? And as a dating coach, what would you be approaching?
I usually like a very simple one line, two line, one sentence, two sentences, kind of tongue in cheek, keeping it very simple. Like what I usually tell guys is like it's so dumb, it's kind of copy paste, but it works really well. Is something simple like great cook but bad at the dishes. I'm looking for a traditional girl more in touch with her feminine side. That's usually kind of like the two liner that I tell a lot of guys to use. And you can change that first line to like, I'll fall in love if you don't steal my hoodies, or my love language is tequila, or just dumb stuff like that. And then you can kind of follow it up with that traditional line. I'd say it's a pretty decent bio. It's not horrible. The horrible bios I see are where this guy tries to fit like every hobby, every interest, and every achievement into a paragraph bio. And it just comes off as really try hard. And it's like, no girl's reading that. She's not reading that. So I'd say it's a pretty decent bio.
Hmm. What's that trad line again that you said?
So like I tell a guy to make his bio, I'll fall in love with you if you don't see my hoodies. And then that second line is going to be, um, looking for a traditional girl in touch with her feminine side. So that's going to be pretty
Hmm.
polarizing to where, the lefty liberal feminist chicks with purple hair and, unshaved armpits are not going to want to swipe right on that. But then the more Catholic girls that identify, or even just traditional girls that identify with, oh, hey, I'm a traditional girl. And then they're more likely to swipe right on you.
So I suppose there's no concern about that first line, I suppose, signaling a certain side of you, which may suggest one is less serious than one actually is in that situation.
I'd say you don't want to go like really overboard on a you want to kind of keep it tongue in cheek, keep it a little playful and not like, spill everything in that one line. Like all you need to do is show that you're like a good looking guy who's normal and has a job, and then you're Catholic, and okay, I have a little bit of a sense of humor too, and then all my pictures show that I'm attractive and do fun stuff. All you want to do is earn the right swipe. That's all you're doing, is earning the right swipe on the profile, and you don't have to give every piece of information about yourself to get that right swipe.
That sounds very good. Well, thank you very much for the roast of this dating profile. I would hopefully be able to put some comments in the old comment section or post section about, do I end up getting loads of matches by incorporating some of these advices in? Hopefully that works, but we'll see how that goes. Thank you so much for coming onto the channel. Once again, you are indeed the first guest coming onto the Joshua Yen channel, so I hope everyone enjoys this more personal discussion. Before we end off this video, can you tell us where people can find you if they want to get to know what you're doing more, or perhaps get some expert dating advice from you? Where can they go?
They can go to @RealTradChad on Instagram or YouTube for my free stuff. You can go, I have a free community with some free courses in there for Catholic dudes. Just go to SKOOL, so school.com/Catholic. You can find me there for some free stuff. And if you want to work with me, awesome. DM me on RealTradChad, so on Instagram. So that's where they can find me.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the channel once again. If you enjoyed this type of content where I'm reaching out and talking to other Catholics on YouTube, then make sure to let me know in the comments below, like and subscribe. And if you have found a way or a better way to approach Catholic dating and to find your family, then let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you have any thoughts or ideas, I'd love to hear them there. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. See you soon. And God bless. I'll see you in the next video.